Demons of Chaos, or Chaos Undivided, are one of the strongest and largest factions we've ever looked at on this channel. They have several powerful mechanics of their own, as well as borrowing some from the other 4 branches of Chaos, meaning they can feel a little overwhelming at times, but once you get on top of everything, they are really a faction that feel like they can rule the world. Let's begin by outlining the pros and cons of the Demons of Chaos campaign gameplay. For the pros, you have total control over your lord and faction to play Chaos truly however you want. They also gain a ton of benefits from anything Chaos related, so journeying the waste can become a breeze, and progressing the glory of Chaos will unlock extremely powerful bonuses for your faction and your lord. As for the cons, they lack any proper identity since you essentially create a demon. This won't be a problem for most players, but if you are looking for a more story-driven campaign, this one is definitely one of the weaker ones. They are also at war with almost any other faction you come across, so it can be a bit of adjustment to the This is Total War style of gameplay. And it can also be hard to balance all the glory and unlock all the units you want without missing out on equally useful units at the same time. The Demons of Chaos for now only have one faction, and it is called the Legion of Chaos. The faction leader can be called whatever you want to name them. As I said, they are the first faction where you essentially create a faction leader as your own personal Demon of Chaos. For the faction effects, you gain access to all 4 demonic rosters via Demonic Glory and the Reign of Chaos. Whenever you deal damage with friendly lords in battle, you will unlock a series of random army abilities. These are displayed along the right hand side of the screen during battles, and once the gauge fills up, a random effect is chosen for each tier. Choosing to use an effect from any tier drains the full bar and it will start from 0 all over again. As far as I can tell, once they've been chosen once, they will repeat the same ones again for that battle, but each battle they will always be different. As for the lord effects, you have the mechanic known as Demonic Glory. Now, since you worship each of the 4 Chaos Gods and Chaos Undivided, you can choose to provide glory to them in many different ways. You can sacrifice post-battle captives, create settlements in their name, enact commandments, create buildings to generate glory, and make choices during events and quests. Glory is then used to fill up 5 gauges, which unlock you a variety of powerful upgrades. Firstly, you unlock pieces of demons to add to your lord. That's right, this lord is truly customizable with the demonic gifts in what I like to call Build a Demon. Now you can combine any of the parts with any of the others, and there are nearly 500 million different combinations. You can unlock new pieces for the head, torso, wings, left and right arms, legs, tail, hand weapons, offhands, or a 2-handed weapon. There are literally hundreds of pieces, and reading each one will take me about a week, but it boils down to this. Each part you unlock is thematic to the Chaos God it comes from, and have effects that modify battle stats and unlock different bound spells and abilities. There are also item sets that reward you for equipping all items in a set with extra buffs on top of those you already get from the pieces. And as a little bonus, the more pieces you equip from a certain branch of Chaos, the more your lord starts to take on that colour, so you can have a green, blue, purple, or red lord, which is neat. Alongside the pieces of demons, you also unlock different units and boons from each of the 4 Chaos Gods. These are displayed alongside the items, and naturally, the further down the lines you go, the more powerful these effects and units do become. Of course, there are a ton of different effects and mechanics, so I won't read them all out, but I will put some on screen while we're talking, so feel free to pause and have a read, because some of them are seriously strong. Some that I will highlight are the 4 mechanics you steal from the other factions. From Khorne, you steal the bloodletting mechanic, which builds up meter as you fight many battles in a row to provide bonuses for your armies. From Nurgle, you steal the switchable plagues mechanic, which allows you to choose from one of 4 plagues to spread with each army and provide bonuses to you and debuffs to enemies. From Slaanesh, you steal the Seduced Units mechanic, which allows you to spend money before battles to turn some enemy units to your side. And from Tzeentch, you steal the Teleport Movement Stance, which consumes winds of magic to move through impassable terrain, similar to the Underways. Finally, once you get far enough into the trees, you can choose to dedicate yourself to one of the 5 types of Chaos. Choosing Undivided will allow you to continue collecting all kinds of glory and complete the first sets of trees for the other 4 Chaos factions. It will also unlock some exclusive item sets, as well as allowing you to get the endgame units for all 4 factions. Choosing any of the other 4 Chaos factions will block out all progress for any other types of glory, and cause your relations to tank with the other 3 Chaos factions, whilst the chosen one will rise. You'll also get access to endgame units from that branch of Chaos, alongside some boons and unique demon princes. A faction doesn't actually start off with a settlement, but the army starts off between Doomkeep and the Bay of Blades, in the northwest of the map. In their army, aside from the Lord, you start with 2 Nurglings, Bloodletters of Khorne, Marauders of Slaanesh, 2 Blue Horrors of Tzeentch, Pink Horrors of Tzeentch, Seekers of Slaanesh, Plague Drones of Nurgle, and Chaos Warhounds. For the faction's client preferences, you have Frozen, Wasteland, Chaotic Wasteland, Temperate, Temperate Island, and Savannah being suitable. magical forest, mountain and jungle being unpleasant, and ocean and deserts being uninhabitable. So for expansion options, the Chaos Wastes are right there and they're practically being corrupted for you, so they are the natural choice, so feel free to stick to this top part of the map for more hospitable lands. All the Norscan tribes around you are potential allies, but it's probably better in the long run just to take their lands for yourself, and let's be honest, you're not playing Chaos to make friends. You can then head south into Kislev or Cathay lands, where there are lots of temperate lands just begging to be corrupted. Alternatively, you can head further north where you'll come across the other 4 Chaos factions, who are your only real chance of alliances, so if you want to burn that bridge and have a full This is Total War experience, then go right ahead. The faction also has a couple of other mechanics. As a Chaos faction, they automatically declare war on any non-Chaos or Chaos worshipping faction they encounter, meaning this is a near true This is Total War experience right out the gate. They also benefit from corruption, and they feel the benefit of their own corruption as well as the 4 other forms. Undivided corruption causes attrition for non-Chaos armies, as well as bonuses to control locally. Khorne gives boost to melee attack and charge bonus, Nurgle gives bonuses to growth, Slaanesh gives bonuses to income from buildings, and Tzeentch gives an increased chance to the winds of magic increasing when you gamble before battles. Upon passing 50 of any corruption, it starts to dominate and reduce all other forms locally. And yes, if you hadn't noticed, corruption has totally changed, and I'll be making a video to explain it a little later. So now go over the different lords in the faction and their skill trees and how they can benefit you. First up, we have the Demon of Chaos. His skill tree is totally unique, like nothing we've ever seen before. He has 5 lines for each of the branches of Chaos. Undivided is the most similar to the blue tree of normal lords, but a little jumbled up with bonuses to infrastructure, before Root Marcher, Lightning Strike, and then upkeep reductions for the 4 Chaos branch units. The 4 Chaos branches have a couple of skills that have general thematic buffs, followed by a ton of skills to buff their faction's units. And if you ask me, it's always worth picking up at least the first skill of each line, since they increase the amount of glory earned for each branch. Khorne is of course focused on destruction, with bonuses for raiding and sacking, and buffs to Khorne units. Nurgle has skills to reduce attrition, increase replenishment, and of course unit buffs. Slaanesh has recruitment costs reduction, hero success chance, and Slaanesh unit buffs. And Tzeentch has buffs to battle reinforcement and wind of magic regeneration. Your skill build really depends on the type of army you want to build, so if you're hyper focused on one branch of Chaos, then sink more points into that than others. That being said, you should always go into the Undivided line for those essential buffs like Root Marcher and Lightning Strike if you want it. Coming to the Herald of Khorne now, and this is much more like your standard lord. The blue tree at the bottom has your essential skills like Root Marcher, casualty replenishment, and increased income from raiding. You can then go further to pick up Lightning Strike and some increased glory gains and reduced upkeep. And finally, the Claimant of Skulls offers a bunch of strong effects. The red tree here is totally focused on Khorne units, so if you aren't using them, then there's not a lot of point going too deep here. If you are, then you can get a ton of value. They of course have their yellow tree for increasing their combat prowess, and these guys are seriously strong battlers, so do not sleep on this tree. Upon reaching level 13, you can choose from one of 3 Locust skills and gain one of 3 powerful abilities, and of course you can pick from their 2 mounts. Juggernauts, which are basically chaotic bull-like creatures, and Shrine of Khorne, which is essentially a chaotic motorbike that grants buffs to the rider and surrounding units whenever it's in combat. Then we have some final top row buffs such as resistance and buffs versus Slaanesh, and the ever essential immortality. Comes the Herald of Nurgle now. You can get these guys in 2 flavors of Nurgle or Death. The blue tree again is very similar to the Herald of Khorne. You got Root Marcher and then buffs for recruitment, looting and raiding, as well as corruption. You can then go into Lightning Strike, upkeep reductions, attrition reductions, and increases to Nurgle glory. And the Renowned and Feared of course has a bunch of really strong buffs. Of course the red line is totally focused on helping Nurgle units, so if you're using them then go right ahead, but if not, there's not a lot more value aside from adding a couple of buffs. You can pick up any spells you fancy from your chosen lore. The yellow line of course has a ton of buffs to the lord themselves in combat, and then you can choose from one of their 3 Locust skills upon reaching level 13, and they have the choice of 2 mounts. The Nurgle Palanquin, which is basically a chair carried by Nurglings, which gains you a ton of HP, as well as some armor and a little speed. Or the Rotfly, which isn't as much HP, but is a ton of speed and some more weapon damage, and of course you can fly. And finally, you can pick up some buffs for fighting versus Tzeentch, and some missile resist, as well as immortality. Next we have the Heralds of Slaanesh, and they come in the flavors of Slaanesh or Shadows. The blue tree of course has Root Marcher, then it has recruitment cost reduction, increases to casualties captured post-battle, income from raiding, and Slaanesh corruption. You can then of course go to Lightning Strike, upkeep reduction, attrition reduction, and increases the glory gains, and as usual, Renowned and Feared. The red line buffs Slaanesh units, if using them, go right ahead, if not, ignore it. You can then pick up any spells you fancy from your chosen lore. The yellow line of course has some buffs for the lord themselves in combat, and then you can choose from one of their 3 Locust skills upon reaching level 13, and then you can also choose from one of their 3 mounts. The Steeds of Slaanesh, which are the Slaaneshi horses that offer great speed and charge bonus. The Seeker Chariot, which grants large increases to charge at the cost of being next to useless in sustained combat, and the Exalted Seeker Chariot, which grants them perfect vigor alongside one of the most devastating charges in the game. And finally, Missile Resist, Bonuses versus Con, and Immortality are all at the top. And finally, the Heralds of Tzeentch, which come in Tzeentch or Metal flavours. The Blue Tree has Root Marcher, Recruitment Cost Reduction, Buffs to Winds of Magic, Increased Raiding Income, and Tzeentch Corruption. And then of course get Lightning Strike, Upkeep Reduction, Attrition Reduction, and increases the Glory Gains, and as usual, Renowned and Fit. Of course, the red line has many buffs for the Tzeentch units, so pick up any you use, or you can give it a miss. You can pick up any spells from your chosen lore. No yellow line here, as these lads really are meant to be fighters. And upon reaching level 13, you can choose from one of the 3 Locust skills, and you can also choose from one of their 2 mounts. The Discs of Tzeentch, which allow them to fly and fight on the move, with high speed and increased survivability. Or the Burning Chariot, which furthers these buffs with more HP and some actual weapon damage, allowing them to charge around and deal a ton of damage with spells and charging. And finally, Missile Resist, Bonuses versus Nurgle, and Immortality. Now each of those 4 Heralds of Chaos can actually evolve into Exalted Daemons upon reaching level 15. Now it's a little weird as it doesn't pop up immediately, but starting the next turn you should be presented with the event. You are presented with the choice to transform, delay it by 10 turns, or permanently keep them as Heralds. Choosing to transform will change them into totally different demons, and carry over about half of their levels of XP to sink into the new tree. Of course, these new forms come with totally new battle stats, but that'll be covered in the battle video on Monday. For now, I'll cover how to level them. The Herald of Khorne evolves into the Exalted Bloodthirster of Khorne, and the skills are basically the same aside from a couple of small differences. They have some different abilities in the yellow line, 3 different Locust talents to choose from, and no mounts. The Herald of Nurgle evolves into the Exalted Great Unclean One, and again, pretty much the same skill tree with a couple of differences. Different abilities in the yellow line, no Locust talents, and no mounts. The Heralds of Slaanesh evolve into the Exalted Keepers of Secrets, and again, basically the same with some slight differences. Different abilities in the yellow tree, no Locust talents, no mounts, and a couple of new top row skills unlock you some abilities. And finally, the Herald of Tzeentch evolves into the Exalted Lord of Change, and again, pretty much the same, but they don't have any Locust talents, no mounts, and a couple of new top row skills unlock you some abilities. Come to the heroes now, and all 4 of them are extremely similar. We have the Blood Reapers from Khorne, the Plague Ridden from Nurgle, the Illyrises from Slaanesh, and the Iridescent Horrors from Tzeentch. All 4 of them have the exact same campaign use of being able to assault units, assassinate enemy characters, assault garrisons, spread control in their local region, and provide training when embedded in an army. All 4 heroes have the exact same blue line of training, campaign skills, and specialist. Now, depending on what you're going to use these heroes for, you'll pick up something different. If you're keeping them on the campaign map, then pick up everything but training. If they're going to be used in battle and embedded in your armies, then pick up training for some passive XP. Now, the Blood Reaper is the only one that has a different skill tree to the other 3. And the only change is, it doesn't have any spells, so you want to go much harder into the yellow tree since it has some buffs for them in general combat, so grab as many as you can to make them into one-man armies. You can then pick from one of the 3 Locust skills once you reach level 13, and choose from the same 2 mounts as the Lords have, the Juggernaut and the Blood Throne. And finally, you can pick up some buffs for fighting Slaanesh, some Missile Resist, Spell Resist, and Immortality. For the other 3, you're going to want to pick up any spells you want, and then head into the yellow tree for some general buffs to them in combat. But when you have such powerful spellcasters, this isn't really something that prioritize until you are completely done with that tree. You can then pick from one of the 3 Locust skills upon reaching 13, and then from their mounts, which are the same as the Lord. The Plague Ridden can get on the Nurgle Palanquin and the Rotfly. The Illyris can pick up the Steed of Slaanesh, Seeker Chariot, and Exalted Chariot, and the Iridescent Horror can pick up the Disc of Tzeentch or the Burning Chariot. And then they have some slight differences on their top row. The Plague Ridden can pick up buffs for fighting Tzeentch, Missile Resist, and Immortality. The Illyris can pick up buffs for fighting Khorne, some Missile Resist and Immortality. And the Iridescent Horror can pick up buffs for fighting Nurgle, some Missile Resist, and you guessed it, Immortality. And finally, we come to the commandments. Now, since they can inhabit settlements, of course it only makes sense that they can use commandments. And they of course have 5 areas of chaos. Favouring Tzeentch provides 3 Tzeentch glory per turn, a minus 40% chance to plague spreading through your lands, and plus 5 income from all buildings. Extolling Slaanesh provides 3 Slaanesh glory and 4 control. Revering Nurgle provides 3 Nurgle glory, minus 20% campaign move range for enemy units starting their turn in the region, and plus 15 growth. Praising Khorne provides 3 Khorne glory, minus 5% to recruitment cost, and plus 1 to local recruitment capacity. And finally, Foster Cults provides plus 3 Chaos Undivided Corruption, and plus 1 Chaos Undivided Corruption in adjacent provinces. And that is everything you need to know about the campaign of the Demons of Chaos. If you enjoyed this video, then do consider leaving it a like, and of course subscribe to see more videos like this, including the Demons of Chaos Battle Guide coming next Monday. A little spoiler for you, they have over 70 units, so it's going to be a big boy. Leave any questions you have in the comments below and I'll answer them as best I can. If you'd like to support the channel, then you can become a member here on YouTube, a subscriber on Twitch, or a patron on Patreon. Doing so gets you shoutouts on the end screen like Dominic Shamas and of course Henry Tucker for his support at Down Cleveland's tier. One more time, thank you all so very much for watching, and for now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.